Hi, Kevin from Darby Training Systems here. We're going to be talking about the hip hinge pattern. It is one of the foundation movements, and fortunately, there's been a variety of different experts in the field weighing in on the hip hinge in terms of how to coach it. I'm going to show you a hip hinge regression. This is a client who's having some trouble. This little system here has worked very well for grooving the hip hinge pattern. It's going to have some of the traditional things you'll see with a couple of little variations that I think you'll find very helpful when using for your clients. So this is a client who has trouble with the hip hinge. Simone will be our sample client. First thing, I'm going to put them on their heels, and I'm going to put them in the position that they would be looking for. So I'm physically moving her into the position, and I'm going to be encouraging hip hinge by pushing my hand into the crease of her hip, but maintaining the proper torso angle. So from here, just hip hinge forward for me. Good. And what I'm going to cue Simone to do with her glute cheeks is I want there to be an east to west focus. You'll find people who have trouble with the hip hinge will substitute lumbar extension, so the hip hinge will look something like this. So I wanted to encourage east to west movement with the glutes. Hip hinge. And I'm pretty active with pushing that hip hinge at the hip. So she really knows hinge at the hip. Hip hinge. Good. Right? So once they've got that, the next progression, come on up. Next progression is going to be this. So I'll demonstrate, and then you're going to do. She's going to step forward from that tall position and drive through the glute. Back down, tall position, hip hinge. Tall position, step forward, stand up. That tall position is really going to engage the core and make them fire the glutes. So hip hinge again. Drive forward, tall position, and stand up. Good. And hip hinge, tall position. Good. Step forward and stand up. Okay. So from there, so you can remain standing. So from that standing position, once they have that motion, my next step now is going to be using a outside prop. So I'm going to position that her feet are wide enough. She's got center of pressure on her feet, and she's braced. So she's got that idea of the braced. And then get into our hip hinge position for me. Good. So she's got that short stop position. It's pretty good there, so stand up and hip hinge. Good. And if I need to, I can cue by pushing back again, hip hinge. And what you'll find is some people will start to get what I call a bent stick or a compensation at that TL junction. So you just have to tell the person, stand up, not to think about it too much, just to hip hinge naturally and feel a little bit of tension on the hamstrings. Good, and stand up. Okay, and again, and just feel the tension on the hamstrings. Good. Are you feeling any tension in your hamstrings as you do that? Yeah. Good, and hip hinge. Good. So what we've done is we've shown you some regressions for people who are having an issue with their hip hinge movement. We've kept it very simple. There's many layers to this, and you can pursue those layers if the person's having trouble. What I've found that these simple steps work for most of the clients that you'll have. So now you have a regression protocol that you can do to get them ready for that basic pattern of the hip hinge. Remember, mobile to move and stable to train.